the Western Cape now, leaving storms over the last few days, leaving a trail of devastation. More than 83,000 people impacted. At least 6 deaths, as you heard there in Eyewitness News. Widespread flooding, trees uprooted, damaged roads, 10,000 structures affected, 26 informal settlements also having been affected. The National Disaster Management Centre now classifying that this weather system of the last week as a national disaster. Question, some are asking whether it's just the Cape's famous winter storms. Are they becoming more dangerous, more destructive because of climate change? We have climate scientists saying that our changing systems may be compressing rainfall into shorter, more intense storm events, meaning fewer rainy days overall, but far heavier downpours. Professor Guy Midgely from Stellenbosch University joins me now. Good morning. I appreciate your time. Are these storms, are they genuinely becoming more intense, or are we simply more exposed and vulnerable than before?
Obviously, a very good question, and on the minds of people of the Western Cape, you're just wondering what the heck just happened. And yeah, I mean, people were very, very badly affected, and condolences. People lost their lives, and families have been affected. This is tragic. But to get to the question, how much is climate change playing a role here, and what's really happening? Well, I think there's probably two parts to answering that question to make it useful for people. And the first is the sort of the global and the climate change trends. Yes, around the world, weather has become more dangerous overall, and that's undeniable. We've added so much energy into the oceans and atmosphere that our weather systems are more damaging. As we're not talking about the fingerprints of climate change anymore, we're talking about the boot print of climate change on the face of the planet. That it's undeniable. But more importantly for the Western Cape, it's our challenge here is that we're in a region which is affected by the interaction between two big masses of air, subtropical warm air and polar cold air. And that is incredibly important, the way that system interacts for our rainfall. And what's happening there seems to be, to me, and to a lot of scientists involved in this game, much more important for certainly our immediate future, the next few decades, for example, because it's how that system is working, which is affecting these sorts of events. And it's for those in the know, it's a system called the Rossby wave, which is characterized by the high altitude jet stream. And that circles the Earth around our latitude in a wavy form. And it's that system and its position and its activity which really feeds the rainfall and the wind speed in this part of the world. And we do not understand it well enough yet because we focus so much on long-term climate change. There are very few people really studying that system, and that is where the Western Cape is vulnerable, very vulnerable.
And so, is our public infrastructure keeping up, our bulk infrastructure, but also how are we building our cities, our towns, but also how are we building our homes? Naturally, the ground is supposed to sop up that water, but we're complaining if my paved backyard and the drainage system can't keep up with the masses of water that's falling, and so I'm going to have a flooded paved dwelling, the area around my home, because there's no ground to sup up that water, it's just paving.
That's exactly right. So what can we do as homeowners, as city planners, and as architects even? Yes, create landscapes, urban landscapes that are much more resilient. What we're seeing now as well is the previous generations of landscape designers have been planting a lot of trees, and some of those trees have been falling over. And that brings an important point. The impact of wind on structures and trees rises with the square of the wind speed. I don't know if our viewers are awake enough to think about their math lessons at school. But it's not a linear relationship. As the wind gets stronger, you get more and more pressure on buildings. It's exponential. And that's why once wind gets above a certain critical level, a lot of roofs start to blow off, a lot of trees start to fall over. That's really what explains the sudden impact of lots of high winds. So we're going to have to start planning and building in a way that is more resilient, because our wind speeds are definitely, and our wind gusts are getting worse. So that's a really immediate impact for the city planners.
And then when you add in the developmental challenges of migration, for example, to urban areas, parts of the Western Cape, people looking for available land. They spot a piece of land. Oh, we're going to set up an informal settlement here, to the chagrin, of course, to authorities, not knowing this is the area, that natural drainage system that's supposed to sop up that water, these natural floodplains. So you have this confluence of a changing climate, but also developmental challenges that are just exacerbating the situation.
That's right. Very often those parts of the landscape are not settled. So they look like they're available, but they're not settled for a reason, because they turn into floodplains at certain times of the year. But we also do silly things like the sand mining on the False Bay coast. That seems to have opened up a gap in the dune system, which is now letting in a southeast wind, which is changing the microclimate near Somerset West. That seems to me a ridiculous decision, to do sand mining to such an extent that you've made yourself more vulnerable to wind. The Cape is very affected by wind, southeast and northwest. You can see it in the shape of our trees. In Sea Point, the trees are shaped one way, and in Muizenberg they're shaped the other way. That is wind, and it's a big part of certainly Southern and Western Cape life.
Guy Midgely, really appreciate your time. He's with Stellenbosch University's School for Climate Studies. I remember, I've lived for 42 years as a child of Cape Town. I know that winter storms are a thing. Something feels different, and it is a convergence of a changing climate, but also how we are not changing the way we build and design our city. Guy, really appreciate your time.